JDC West 2019 Operations Management Team's presentation. Competitors will have a maximum of 20 minutes to present. Immediately following the presentation, judges will have a total of 5 minutes to ask the presenters questions. The volunteer timekeeper will show the time cards at various intervals to indicate the remaining time and will stop any speaker who exceeds the maximum time limit. No questions, comments, cell phones, or picture taking except the individual who has immediate pass will be permitted from the audience at any time. The audience will only be permitted to applaud following the question and answer period. The audience is banned from any material that bears the name or symbol of a competing university. We ask that the audience and the delegates exit the room immediately following the question and answer period. Competitors, the timekeeper will let you know when you can begin your presentation. Whenever you're ready.
Hello, we are ACE Consulting, and first I would like to introduce my team. So to my right, I have Ann Wang, I have Sagar Singh to my left, and I'm Eric Boris. And I would just like to first off say the opportunity presented to you currently with your supply chain is a wonderful opportunity. And moving forward, there are many things that you can do moving forward to make sure that you are successful just with your supply chain. So, a summary of what we'll be taking you through today. So, the biggest problem is the distribution optimization. So, how we are going to use other distributors, or will your company will integrate forwardly in order to make sure that we are getting rid of these distributors and getting rid of a middleman. And as you can see, our recommendation is to forward integrate because we believe that for your company, it will benefit very much with forward integration rather than using a distributor in South Africa. So distribution optimization, that's the biggest problem. But the secondary problems are competitive responses to other companies using these distributors in South Africa. So how are we going to differentiate ourselves from these other companies, and how are we going to make sure that our products will be selling much better than our competitors? And also, we can see that there was a huge gap in the market in South Africa. 77% of the market there is in beer and the consumption of beer. And currently your company does not produce any beer, and that is just a very large gap that potentially could be filled later on. I would like to take Anne for the industry landscape.
Thank you. Let's take a look at the industry landscape. So the alcoholic market industry in South Africa is a growing market. That implies a tremendous opportunities in the future for you to expand. And regarding the market size, as Eric just briefly touched on, that the spirit you're currently focused on is only set for 10% of the market, whereas we think that there are more opportunities for you to focus on moving forward to bring a huge success for the company. Take a look at the company internally. Looking at the strengths, we realize that the company currently you have a huge reputation for producing high quality products, and also for your commitment to take and contribute some of your profit to community events, supporting your community, which give you a good company brand image, and also differentiate from other companies that are currently in the market. Also, because of the fact that you're using and reutilizing the facilities and equipment that the co-founders has, this requires minimal investment for the company, which allows you to use those monies elsewhere for further enhancement and improvement for the company. Looking at the weaknesses, we realize that the product that you're currently producing and the business model right now producing. So we think these are something that you could look into as well in the future. Moving on to opportunity, we see tons of opportunities that you can utilize that are available in the industry. First of all, we mentioned that there is a value depreciation in South Africa for the currency against the US. I believe that this is an opportunity for you because then there will be shrink in foreign investment for other companies. There will be fear for investments from other companies, and for you to enter this market, we believe that there is to make you a early entrant and potentially capture the early entrant competitive advantage in the market and the industry. Second of all, you mentioned that as more competitors are being more aware of the more developed markets such as Europe or the US, so being able to enter South African industry allows you to access the untapped market, which could potentially give you higher profit margin and earn you more sales revenue. With that, there is also an opportunity for internal expansion, like you expressed in the case, you're thinking of expanding to South Africa. And also, we think that there is an opportunity for you to improve the operational efficiency by providing more trainings to the staff. We know that you currently be giving education to the staff about the product information, but we would like you to potentially improve and narrow down and focus not just on a broad range of product, but more focus on the alcoholic side of the product. And some threat that we identify is that there are fierce competition for both informal and the formal market. We think that this is very important for you to further differentiate yourself against the competitors. So these are something really interesting and very important to look at in the future. Lastly is that we realize the underlying feature of this market implies that the distributors and agents control the access to the market, and this hinders ineffectively managing this hinders your ability to reach the end customers, which also affect the company's sales and the future development as well. So the key takeaway from this analysis is that your company currently have substantial strengths, and we also think that there are very huge opportunities moving forward, and we're now going to show you how we can utilize what the strengths that you have and take you to more opportunities while overcoming the threats in the future.
So our first alternative that we came up with would be to shut down in South Africa. You have had problems currently in the past and ongoing with distributors, and these problems may continue in the future if you choose to find another distributor, and that's why shutting down is an alternative that can guarantee you that you will not have problems in the South African market anymore. So a pro of this would be that costs decrease significantly. You would no longer be distributing your products in the South African market, and since there are very few capital investors in the South African market, it will not be a huge cost to your business to shut down. A con, which is a very, very large one, is that you would be losing on a growing market and a potentially very large market in the future. A second alternative would be to stick with Delirium currently. So a pro of this is that there would be no need to look for another distributor. You currently have them, you know their weaknesses, and you know their strengths. And we also have 6 consultants that are working with Delirium currently. Another pro is that we do have the consultants that know Delirium. And big con is that they do not just focus on selling our product. Since they are a distributor for our company and many other companies, they will be selling what is best for them. And this is why working with Delirium would be a problem, because they want the best for their company at the end of the day, not necessarily what is best for your company. And also you have to deal with premium with selling your products. You have to give that 20% margin standard in South Africa to make sure that you stay competitive with all the other suppliers of your products. And finally, a third alternative would be to forward integrate. So a pro is that there would be larger profit margins. You wouldn't have to deal with a distributor anymore, and you wouldn't have to deal with that cost in order to sell your products. So you wouldn't have to be dealing with a distributor, and you wouldn't have to make sure that you have to deal with distributors. And there'd be no middleman, and you would be a distributor yourself. And this is a 7.3 billion market potential in South Africa, and it is only a $3.6 billion market if you use distributors. So they're shaving off a lot of the market that you could potentially be gaining a lot larger of a profit margin. A con is it's very, very costly. In order to forward integrate, it would be very risky, costly, just because of what you have to do. You aren't very sure of the South African market, and you aren't as experienced as distributors there. You have some experience with these 6 consultants, and they would be experts for your company in order to make sure that you are moving forward correctly, and they would be able to distribute properly with their knowledge. So the decision criteria that we chose was based off sales revenue, cost, and market size, and how we can use this decision criteria to move forward into the future. Instead of looking at an immediate solution, we were looking more into the future and how this will impact your company. Since this is a growing market, we want to make sure that we are in this market when it reaches maturity, and we are a very large force when it reaches maturity. So based off of this, we decided to go forward integration because it has the most potential to make sure your company lives to its full potential in the South African market. In the South African market. And now I'd like to take it to Sagar to make sure the implementation plan.
So to lay it out step by step, right off the bat, we would want to do market research to properly understand the reactiveness of the consumers towards beer pricing, and also understand what their preferences are in taste and in general. And also we'd like to apply for a bank loan of 6% in interest, and negotiate it if possible lower in the span of 4 years, mainly since we know currently that our operation, that your operations is at a deficit of 200,000. So in order to further fund the next few phases and actually properly produce these beers in that South African market, we would need to apply for this bank loan. And right after that, we would want to produce a beer in the US and sell it in South Africa. And to do this, it would cost approximately around 500,000. And we would also want to recruit the consultants that were hired and were working for Delirium to be on your side, and we would want 2 of them, since it would be very costly. So that would also cost around 200,000 per consulting. And so to apply for the bank loan, this would take around 4 to 5 months upon applying, and then also waiting for the approval. And to hire the sales consultants, it would take around 1 to 2 months. And after that, we would want to sell in the South African market in a smaller scale and understand how the market works with beer. And after doing that, we would continue to expand after we reach our sales target. So going on to our next phase, upon reaching our sales target, we would then want to open up the distribution center, because after we have realized that we've made a good amount of sales, we then can actually fund the distribution center, and we would also be using the money from the loan for that. And so we would have to hire new staff and also have new equipment for that distribution center as well. And so that would cost approximately around 1 million, and it would take 1 full year to set up. And so having this distribution center, as mentioned earlier, provides a lot of benefits, and will, in the long run, help you earn more revenue. So going on to the third phase, we would also want to add more products in the South African market, which are of lower price, mainly because we know that there's an informal market out there, and that most of the individuals and consumers there are only lean towards purchasing the lower price products. So that is why we would step by step want to release a product at a time and see whether we can reach a good amount of net sales with it. And so how much it would cost to release each product would be how much the production costs are currently for your spirit or your sparkling wine or whatever products that you have already currently maintained and produced in the US. And so those will be your production costs going forward. And this would take 3 months continuously after evaluation of each product and also implementing it into that market. And so 3 months step by step would also need meetings with the branch in the US as well. So that is why we would want it to be consistent throughout the year. So next are the risk and mitigation that are involved. So the first risk that would appear would be the individuals not liking the beer, and mainly because the tastes vary from the US to the South African market. And so we would want to mitigate this by actually refining the beer and adapting it to that market as well, in terms of the consumer taste and preference. And then we would also, another issue that would also arise would be the ineffectiveness of reaching consumers through our sales staff. And mainly we would want to train them much better and also use a Six Sigma approach in terms of making sure that each time they approach sales, they always have a new and better strategy. And also that they know the products that you are selling as well. So we would want to further push the sales even more. So in a general sense, I want you to visualize that with only 20% of the market being catered towards, only with sparkling wine in South Africa, you were able to generate 1.8 million in net sales revenue. And so with 77%, we can push our sales forward and reach even more than 2 billion. And also decrease that operations deficit that we currently are in. And there are a lot of opportunities that we seek out in the South African market if we use our sales staff properly and we take the middlemen out that are shaving our costs away, because they are taking the standard of 20% in discounts. So we want to push our sales forward above 3 million and into the future release new products. So that is why we believe forward integration is the best decision for you. Thank you.
We will commence with a 5-minute Q&A period.
You guys are going into the beer market. Would you be thinking of producing the beer in the States or in South Africa? And would you use a similar model to how you were manufacturing spirits?
So we would want to produce it in the US mainly because your company already has a lot of good contacts there in terms of the distillery. So it'd be easier for you to actually outsource certain costs in terms of producing the beer in itself in the US.
Okay. I think one challenge might be because the beer would be a higher volume product that would cost a lot more in shipping.
And kind of tagging on there, you're selling the beer in both markets or only in the South African market, and how are you pricing that?
So we would base the beer off of current prices in the United States and also current prices in the South African market. So we would try to make sure that we are competitive within that market in both of the markets, but our primary target would be the South African market, just because it is 77% of the demand is from alcohol consumption is coming from beer. So we'd like to focus in South Africa to make sure that we capitalize off that 77%.
You focused a lot on cutting out the middleware in distribution. Can you talk more about how you plan to do that when you're setting up your own operations?
So we would first want to terminate that contract, and then as I mentioned in the implementation, we would want to contact the distillery in the US and then create one for the beer and then release that beer product and then sell it slowly. So in the beginning, we would want to do it in a small scale, and based on good sales revenue, we would progress forward with a larger volume, because it is a large volume product and it should be at a very low price.
To build on that question,
sales staffing in South Africa?
Because currently we know that you have hired a sales consultant, so we're actually sending like two of them to there first, just as a startup, and then because they're already trained, so they have a expertise and they have the knowledge about the product.
This is your target though.
Well, then we'll just do a second training, but then the product expertise, like in turn, they have the skills to sell the product to the people. We're utilizing that for that market.
And then as far as our sales in the South African market across the 3 different products now, what channels are we focused on? Are we going for hypermarkets? Are we going for cash and carry? Are we going with beverage service? What are we doing there?
So we would like to first focus on going into the cash or the informal businesses, or the formal businesses, sorry. So we'd be focusing more on the distribution networks, not with bars or with other locations that you can consume alcohol openly in social situations, more in kind of the supermarkets, and then hopefully build our brand name so that the top 50 bars and locations would be able to take on our products.
So when do, we're already $500,000 in the hole on this project in South Africa. This is a different step altogether, so when do we break even on this? You guys do the math on that too?
So generally, knowing that you are at a $500,000 deficit, since we did get a loan for for $3 million and at a rate of 6% for 4 years, we believe that around 2 years that it is possible, since with only the sparkling wine, you were able to reach 1.8 million, approximately 2, close enough, and within 1 year's time. So within 4 years, we think it's possible that you can reach over that 2 million for beers, since it is a larger market, and we are also incorporating the informal market as well.
But it has a lower contribution rate, beer does, as opposed to sparkling wine. Like per case quantity, you have to make a whole lot more beer to make the same amount of money to do sparkling wine.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And that concludes the presentation. Thank you very much.